At the moment, so I don't know if you've read it. There's a book called Crossing the Chasm by Geoffrey Moore, which is a really well-known marketing book. It's been around since the 80s, and he kind of revises it every so often, so the references are a bit more modern. And it's all about the idea of the tech adoption life cycle. You know, the bell curve. So you've got your your initial users who are the innovators. Then you have the kind of early adopters. Then you have what he calls the chasm before you jump into the early majority, who are more pragmatic and they need to know that something works and it's been around for a while. And I think kind of we're at that point now, is that we have worked with a lot of early adopters and people who are excited with new technology and businesses who are forward thinking. And I think now really the challenge for us is finding that way into becoming, like I said, a market leader, something that is trusted, so that larger sort of legacy companies, rather than young tech upstarts who are willing to try something new, so those bigger companies are really happy to take us on. You know, in a similar way to kind of Salesforce did that same thing. You know, Salesforce really targeted salespeople rather than sales departments. It was something that you could have installed on your computer. You didn't have to have it pre-approved by your boss. It can make you the best salesperson at your company, and that cross-pollination of salespeople moving jobs, spread it around. And so I think that's really the key for us next, is to try and capitalize on that. Is to go from being just a kind of cool little tool that some people who are in the know use, are becoming something that's widely known by either salespeople for lead gen or sort of database marketers and researchers for the data side of things. And obviously there's a huge challenge in that, because you have to somehow, I mean, so in the book, Geoffrey Moore talks about a market being a group of people with a similar set of needs who reference each other, who talk to each other. So the problem is how do you become referenced by the majority without cracking into the majority? It's a kind of catch-22. You need to somehow find an in-way into these sort of larger companies if you're a B2B product, and having them trust you, and then building on that kind of word of mouth from there. So that's the next big challenge, really, is how to take something that is kind of largely unknown and sort of moving it into the mainstream.
Yeah, I think it's a big challenge for a lot of people, and I don't know. I feel like the only answer is content, and that's really where it's going. And I feel like that's what makes it that's what makes the difference between.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Content is really important. So we have a kind of content machine. We write. So I tend to work on, for anyone who's into the SEO stuff, I tend to work on a pillar and cluster page process. So I'll write a large pillar page, maybe 3,000 to 5,000 words on a topic, and then I'll write small cluster pages, sometimes as guest blogs in other places, sometimes on our own site. And then we have a whole kind of backlinking process we worked on in the last year, and it's grown quite suddenly, actually, which is really good to see. So yeah, SEO and content does play a big part of it. I mean, obviously you're introducing something to a market that doesn't really know about it. So in the early days, there were very few searches for what we did. So we mostly it was intent-based traffic that we would hit with a Google ad, right? So someone would type, how do I export contacts from LinkedIn? And we would pop up as an ad. And the problem is that there are so many people out there who don't even know to ask that question. They don't even know that that's a possibility. They're using LinkedIn every day, and maybe they think, oh, it would be cool if there was a tool that did this, but actually we found there are so many people out there who don't even really consider it. So it's how to get in front of those people and to teach them that this kind of thing exists and that it's safe to use and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, like you say, content definitely is very important. And I think also really trying to build on testimonials as well, people knowing that it works. Because obviously people have worries with something like this. You ask me yourself, how are you going to deal with the fact that LinkedIn doesn't particularly like it, and people are worried about their accounts, and people have worries around something new anyway. So it's about sort of assuaging those fears, teaching them about the product as it exists, and then trying to sort of conquer a market and becoming that market leader.